Why is it called a Jellybean Tester? Well, what do you think? I think that says it all, doesn't it? Hi, my name is Jit Patel and I'm the Global Product Manager for High Touch Electrical Products. This is the Fluke tested interview where we'll go through questions sent in by you. So we'll start off with the first one. So first question's from Darren, and he asks, what is the Fluke 1670? So the Fluke 1670 series is a series of testers which are multifunction installation testers, so used for testing fixed wire installations. Nice simple question to start. So let's go to the next one. Andrew Brooks asks, what does the Fluke 1670 tester do? So a Fluke installation tester is a tester that allows you to test a fixed wire installation, and it allows you to do all the safety measurements, so you're proving the safety of the system. So whether you're doing insulation tests on the cabling to prove the insulation of the actual outer cabling of the copper, or doing an RCD test to make sure it trips in time, you're basically doing all those safety tests just to prove it's safe and to generate a report for the end user. So Robert Beer asks, what does the 1670 measure? So we just discussed a few of those things. So, I suppose if we go through the main measurements, it does continuity, insulation, loop, RCD testing. It can also do SPD testing, as well as IMD testing. So an anonymous person has asked, what's in the 1670 series that's different from the old 1660 series? That's a really good question, because the main thing here really is that we can go through the documenting process a lot easier and a lot quicker. We can easily just make a tester which does all the tests again, and that's what most manufacturers have been doing for the past 15-20 years. So what we wanted to do something different, and from all of the interviews that Fluke do called Voice of the Customer, what we learned was documenting was a very important part of the day-to-day business of an electrician, and it took them a long time to do this. So we really wanted to concentrate on that and make sure that we offered a documented facility which would speed things up for them. So Manant Shah asks, what are the top features of the 1670 series? Probably the top feature, going back to what we talked about just earlier about documenting, is the fact that you can set up all of your circuit structure, and you can actually see that in a table format on your instrument. What you're able to then do is go through this table, so move through the table, making your measurements and saving it to the table, so it's very easy to see all of your measurements, whether they've passed or failed, and whether you've missed anything, because that's one of the biggest things that we were told during our VOCs. What you can also do is actually see pass or fail limits. When you're actually doing the measurements themselves, you'll see a clear indication of green or red whether something's passed or failed. So other features that we have obviously are the color touchscreen, and also a rechargeable battery. You also have a new rotary encoder, which makes it simpler to go through the UI. You can also flip the screen 180 degrees, and we'll talk about that later. So all of these things are helping improve the user interface, making it simpler for you to use out in the field. Okay, so DRD asks how to use it. Okay, well, I suppose that brings us onto a really good feature of the instrument, in that on every screen, so whenever you go into a function now, you can press the information button and it will tell you how to connect it and literally how to use it. But in general, it is really a matter of deciding what type of measurement you want to take, connecting the instrument, setting the sub-functions. So if it's an insulation test, you set 500 volts or 1000 volts, whatever measurement you want to do, and press the test button. You'll see a value on the screen. Now you'll be able to tell whether it's a pass or a fail from the screen itself with a red or a green indication. And that's it really. I suppose the next step is to save it, obviously, because you want to document it. Next question. So this is from an anonymous person. How much can you customize in the auto test mode? We have two models, the 1673 and the 1674. Both have the ability to make auto test measurements. With the 73, you have what we call preset auto tests. And that goes basically through a sequence of measurements for you automatically that are actually factory presets. You then have the 1674, and the 1674 basically allows you to customize those. And that customization basically allows you to set up any test that is in the instrument. So you can go through continuity, installation, loop, RCD, and you can basically set them up, including the presets, so installation 500 volts, 1000 volts. Just basically means it will go through those automatically for you, but then also it prevents you having to set all those sub functions up as you're going along. So it saves you time, but also make sure you can go through all of those sequences that you want it to. So this is from an anonymous person. Love the new touchscreen. Can it play Doom? Do you know what? That touchscreen is really that good that yes, it probably could, but unfortunately, no, you can't plug anything into it. But yeah, it's a nice idea though. Ismail JVG asked, is it better than the competitors' power analyzers? It's certainly better at doing installation testing. Maybe compare it to our power quality stuff, and yeah, I'm sure we'll come out on top. So Patrick's HVAC Adventures asks, what would be the top applicable feature of the 1670 in the commercial HVAC industry? So I think HVAC industry, lots of motors. So installation testing, I suppose the installation test would be pretty good. The beauty of the 1674 FC, it has the installation pre-test. And what's useful about the installation pre-test is that you can tell if there's other appliances on a circuit. So if you're trying to just test one circuit and there's possibly other things on that circuit that could get damaged, then the installation pre-test on the 1674 will tell you if there's still something connected, and it would allow you to disconnect that and make sure that you don't damage it. Obviously other things like phase rotation, if you've got 3-phase motors, etc., that's always going to be useful. Continuity as well, you can make sure that your grounding's all correct. I mean, obviously there's also other Fluke tools that will help with a HVAC type scenario. But from an installation tester, those are the tests that I can see being used the most. So this is from an anonymous person. Why is it so expensive? Yeah, well, I mean, it's one of those things, isn't it? I mean, you know, there's something that since I've got here to Australia, there's been a lot of people kind of saying the same thing, is that the poor man always pays twice. One of the things you're going to get with this instrument is, you know, you're going to get reliability, you know, you're going to get longevity. The fact that you can actually also put a USB stick into the instrument and update it means that this is going to really last some time. Our intention is to carry on updating the unit. If there's any regulatory changes, we're going to do those changes. But making sure that, you know, you're up and running and you keep up and running is very important to Fluke. So yes, I think, you know, we really relate with the poor man always pays twice. We make sure that, you know, yes, you're spending a bit of extra money, but I think in the long run, it's going to save you a lot of money. Okay, so Luke K asks, how much time will it save me? So it's one of those, is how long's a piece of string, because everyone's workflow is different. But certainly this is one of the areas in which we're really trying to develop the 1670 series. You know, what we claim is that it'll be up to 30% faster testing and 50% improvements in documenting time. So where we're looking at, you know, the faster testing is the fact that we can do automatic tests and it can go through those sequence of measurements for you. We have things like pass or fail limits, so you don't need to think about or look up at any, you know, limits. And then just the fact that you're saving it to a table, you know, it's going to be a lot quicker than, you know, having to either write it down or, you know, save it to a record number and then work that out later. And then the 50% documenting time, I mean, there's a simple one there. I mean, the customers that we've been speaking to are actually saying it's probably more than that, because you've collected all of this metadata, the type of RCD types, the cable sizing, the circuit description, etc. You've collected all that information on site, so you can transfer that straight over to TrueTest software and print out your report. You know, what we're saying is 50% is easily coming from not having to basically write down this information and then manually enter that into software, or manually write out a, you know, a new certificate just so that it's neat. So there's lots of opportunities there to save time, and that's where this instrument's coming from. That's the differentiator here. So Philip F asked, can you guys stop releasing so many new tools? My wallet can't take it. I love that. I think a real Fluke fan. So yeah, Philip, thanks for buying Fluke instruments. That's great. But yeah, it's in our DNA, isn't it? I mean, that's what Fluke are. We're innovators. We like to innovate. So I don't think we can. I think this is something that we're just going to carry on doing. This is what we love about our jobs. But I'm sure, you know, you're the person who's going to benefit from that. Okay, so next question. James asks, does it do RCD trip time testing? Yes, so yeah, that's one of the main measurements is RCD testing I hear here in Australia. So yeah, we can do the full trip time testing. So we can both do the trip time testing. If you go up to the 1673 and 74, you can do B type, so DC RCDs. And also the 6 milliamp RDC DDs for EV charging stations. So yes, we can do RCD testing, we can do a lot more, as well as obviously the ramp test, which I'm sure you know. So Tony asks, is it true RMS? Yes, voltage measurements are true RMS. So AE asks, how do the on-screen pass-fail indications work? So it's pretty simple. It uses the standards, the international standards, i.e. 60364. So it is just as simple as when you take a measurement, it will compare that measurement to that limit, and you'll see basically a green pass or a red fail on the touch screen. If you want to go into more depth, you can click onto that value and it will take you into the limit screen and you can see the extra detail there. In the instrument, when you set up all your metadata and you set up your circuit, you set up the type of RCD, it takes that information to work out your limit. So it just saves you a lot of time as far as, you know, what you should be doing. It prevents you having to look at tables and looking all that up. So an anonymous person has asked, does it guide you on test setups? Yes, I mean, if you look at any screen, any functional screen, when you look at the screen, you'll see a information button, so just an I. If you press onto that, it will basically take you into a screen, which then shows you a circuit diagram of how you should actually connect up the instrument. So AP asks, can this model perform installation testing on reticulation systems at 1000 volts phase to phase and 577 volts phase to earth? So it can't make measurements 1000 volt phase to phase. It is standard 3-phase systems that this is designed to work up to, but it has got the highest voltage rating of any instrument in the market. We can do measurements up to 600 volts, maximum of 660 volts. So you can do face-to-face testing, standard, 415 face-to-face testing, but up to 1000 volts face-to-face testing. I'm not really sort of seen that application before, but yeah, I'm afraid no, we can't cover that particular application, not up to 1000 volts anyway. Okay, so Richard Bernata asks, are the test recording features better than the old series? Fluke View Forms is a bit of a pain. So yes, I mean, this is something that the Australia team here have been sort of telling me, because Fluke View Forms is a good piece of software if you're just looking at test results, but from a documenting perspective, there's some improvements that could have been made to that. But we're now obviously moving over to the True Test software. True Test software is a certification package. It's designed purely for certification. So we're now able to improve that by allowing you to work bi-directionally. So whereas with the 1660 series, you could basically save your data to a field A, field B, and field C, which field A would be, your site, field B would be your distribution board, field C would be your circuit. That was the level of detail you could get. I mean, it was workable, but not, great. What we can now do is we could set up all the circuits. You can actually document whether it's a lighting circuit, with cooker circuit, whatever circuit it is, with all that metadata, cable sizing, the type of RCD that's on there. We've improved it tenfold really on the way you're documenting all this information. But then also on the True Test side, where I can, if I want, set up all the details on there and then send it up to the instrument so I have all that information before I go on site, or I can do that on site in the instrument directly. So we're giving you obviously more than one way to do it, because let's face it, when it comes to documenting information, you don't really know what situation you're going to be in. You sometimes have all that information, sometimes you don't. So we're making sure we cover all of that. So an anonymous person asks, what type of reports can it produce? So it does basically standard installation reports. What we are trying to do right now is make sure that we've got the IE 60364 standard report, which basically lists all of your tests, but also some of that metadata, address, etc. And it's basically referred to as a 60364 report. That covers, most global requirements. But what we will do as we move along is that we will start looking at individual countries and then actually bringing in those extra kind of little changes that we need to do to make it more regionalized. Okay, so Sabas Manto asks, when you do self-reporting, can you customize the results that is recorded, for example, recording the highs? yes, you can do it manually, and it would also do some automation there as well. So Bones and Moans asks, does it do DC EV charging testing? So I suppose an installation tester doesn't do the testing. What it can do is actually do the fixed wire installation part, so it can do the installation cables, etc. We can't actually do EV DC charging stations. What we tend to use our EV300 and EV350 on are AC charging stations, but it will allow you to do those DC tests. Obviously, it's a DC output from the EV charging station. So we can do RDC-DD testing, so we can do the 6 milliamp RDC-DD testing. If you've got multiple, I suppose, EV charging stations, we've even got IMD testing now. So a lot of these multiple EV charging stations are actually protected by an insulation monitoring device. So we can do that testing now on the 1674. But as far as DC EV charging stations, yeah, if you wanted to do specifically testing for that, the 1670 series, it wouldn't be the right tool for that anyway. You'd need a dedicated EV charging station tester, a bit like the FEV 350 EV charging station analyzer. But yeah, keep in mind, with Fluke, we're always innovating, so, just watch this space. Desmo47 asked, can testing be operated from the app? No, there's no remote control from the instruments, but yeah, not a bad idea. So Daniel T asks, can you give me a discount? Now that's putting me on the spot, isn't it? Why not? Yeah, if you use the code on the online store, so fluke.com.au, put in my name as the code, so JIT, and we'll work out a discount. Okay, so Alan asks, what is the IT unearth system mode and why is it useful? So when we do our measurements using the 1660 series, or even the 1660 and the 1670, or let's just say any installation tester, it's important to have an IT mode. The reason why is it works different from a TNCS. An IT system is a system that's unearthed. So the instrument needs to know that it's an unearthed system, because that's what it's looking for. It's trying to look for a break in the earth, for example. This is why you're doing the safety tests. So in the instrument itself, we have the ability to switch over to IT mode. And yeah, just make sure that when you're actually taking your measurements, they're the right measurements for an IT system and they're accurate. Also, what's useful is that we now have the IMD test, the installation monitoring device test, which is for IT systems. They're basically on IT systems. So you can set to IT, obviously, and also do testing of IMD devices. Okay, so an anonymous person has asked, is the 1670 series compatible with the same accessories as the 1660 series, and are there any new accessories? There are some new accessories, but as far as the main accessories are concerned, so the mains test cord, the 3-wire lead set, they're all the same accessories. But what we do have is a new accessory, which is the magnetic hanging strip, which will allow you to hang the instrument on a distribution board door, so any basically metal door. So it just makes it easier when you're there on site. And this is where I was saying, we're talking a bit earlier, that you could actually flip the screen by 180 degrees. So as you turn the instrument around, so your leads are facing outwards, so you can do your measurements, what you can actually do is flip the screen 180 degrees, so you can still obviously see it properly, but it also changes the user interface, so it still makes sense. The rotary encoder, instead of going left to right, or go right to left, because it's obviously upside down. So that basically allows you to make sure that you've got your hands free, it's not around your neck, close up to the distribution board. So it's a nice little thing that we've added. What are the new IMD and SPD tests, and why would you use these tests in the real world? Okay, so let's start with the first one, which is insulation monitoring devices. So insulation monitoring devices, as we said a bit earlier, are for IT systems, and where you want an IMD system is basically where you want to have an unearthed system and you want to see insulation breakdowns. So what you're able to do is have an IMD device, so an insulation monitoring device, so it monitors the insulation. And what it doesn't do is actually, switch off the system. It gives you an alarm. We want to be able to test that just to make sure it is, activating correctly. So what you can now do with the 1674 is you could switch that over to IMD testing. You can then select the resistance of the IMD device, what it's set to, and then from there check to see whether it alarms either side of that resistance. From that, you're able to obviously prove that the IMD is going to alarm in the right position. So that's IMD devices. The next one was about SPDs, so surge protection devices. So surge protection devices, or surge protection, has been around for some time. We all used to have these extension leads on IT equipment which had surge protection on them. It's the same principle. So we had surge protection devices on circuits now, full, protecting a whole circuit rather than just a couple of appliances with a extension lead plugged into a wall. They're becoming more and more prevalent with all this sensitive equipment that we now have, IT equipment, all our, games consoles, etc. They're a lot more sensitive, and, if there's a surge, we're going to damage those. So a lot more people want SPDs actually on their systems. It's happening on domestic type installations as well. It's just all down to whether you want that extra bit of protection. So SPDs, basically what they will do is, as you get to a surge of some sort, it will basically activate and put that down to ground. What we're able to do with the 1674 is we can set that to a voltage. So, typically SPDs are up to 500 volts or up to 1000 volts. So you just select whether it's 500 or 1000 volts. And then what it will do is it will basically ramp up in voltage until it causes the SPD to actually activate. It basically then records what that is in DC and then does a calculation up to AC. And then that way you'll be able to check it against the plate of the SPD and just check whether it's actually activated in time. So that's how we do SPD testing. But very useful measurement. I think it's going to be something that really is going to future-proof you from the perspective that, it's just going to get more and more prevalent in the market. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So the cameraman asks, how many jelly beans are in the jar? I don't know. I mean, I'd like to think there's 1,670, but I had one before and I'm going to have one now. So that would make 1668, 1,668. Let us know what you think. Put it in the comments. Evan asks, why would I need a 1670 series? Well, why wouldn't you? If you're a Sparky or electrician, I think it makes perfect sense to have the 1670 installation tester. So, the main thing around there is, look, you have all the measurements that you are used to. If you're used to a 1660 series, you'll know your way around this. But it comes with all those smart device sort of changes. So what we're able to do, obviously, is use a touchscreen and use that touchscreen to do extra documenting, improve the documenting workflow. So if you're looking to document faster, if you're looking to test faster, then why wouldn't you go for the 1670 series? So I'm Jit, this has been the Fluke Tested interview. Thanks for all the questions. It's been really fun. I think if there's any more questions, please send them through and the team will try and answer them. But thanks for spending your time with me, and look forward to maybe doing this again sometime.